Yes, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I welcome you to the Islam at a Glance Sunday class brought to you by the Islamic Association of Raleigh. Today, Tammy will be speaking on the topic of what's that? Grief and loss. Is that what it is?
Yeah, dealing with grief and loss through an Islamic lens.
Okay. So, yeah. This, as most of you know, is an introductory class for the non-Muslims or Muslims interested in learning about Islam. And you will have the opportunity to ask questions throughout the class. If you can put your comments or questions in the chat box, we will get to it by the end of the class. And if you would also like to visit us at the Islamic Center of Raleigh and would like to speak to someone about Islam or just take a tour, please email us at outreach@islamone.org, and we will be happy to assist you. And if you have any questions about taking Shahada or getting materials to read the Quran or anything else, you may also reach to us, or I will leave my phone number in the chat box if you would like to send me a message, and I will get back to you with any kind of help you may need. So with that, I'll give the mic to Tammy.
Thank you so much. Yes, if anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself. You go ahead and ask any questions at the time. This is just some material that I put together based on some classes that I took and readings that we had in the classes from Muslim Matters, and then also just some material from the books of Hadith, which are the sayings and doings of Prophet Muhammad, and then also from my English version of the Quran, since I'm not an Arabic speaker. So I just put this together for some of our new sisters that actually had asked about this, that were dealing with grief and loss. So this is certainly not, I'm not a psychiatrist or a counselor or anything. This is just some information that I had come across that I just wanted to share with you. I think Islam has a unique way of dealing with grief and loss, and it provides a specific prescription. So just an overview, Allah says He will test us with fear and loss. So it's a guarantee in this life. It's only normal that we feel the loss and grieve and have emotions, and that's how we're made. So Allah provides us, or God provides us with the prescription for not being overcome with the grief and loss, and rewards us for going through the difficulty and for turning to Him. The prescription is to have sabr, which is an Arabic word, and it's generally translated as steadfast patience with the acceptance of Allah's decree, and with not only steadfastness, but endurance. So the prescription is to have this sabr, to ask for Allah's help and reward in both prayer and supplication, and to give in charity to help others going through difficulty. And my sources today are the Quran English translation, also Tamia Zubair's, she's with Al Huda. It's her tafsir or explanation of the Quran, with various hadith books, and with this Muslim Matters article on supplication for attaining happiness. So I just want to start with just a little bit of brief reading from the Quran. This is the second chapter, which is called Al-Baqarah, and it's the verses 155 through 157. It says, "We shall test you with some of fear and famine, with loss of wealth, lives, and crops. But give glad tidings to the patient," there's that sabr, "to those who, when calamity strikes, say, we belong to God, and to Him we shall return. Upon them descend blessings from God and mercy. They are guided aright." So this is sort of the prescription I talked about before. So basically, it's accepting the trial and to be patient about it. And Tamia Zubair with Al Huda, in her explanation of the Quran, she says, being patient comes from the Arabic word sob, which means hit the target, literally, one who is right, who has the correct view or opinion. Sawab is the right meaning, or knowing it's not an accident. So that's all wrapped up in this word, and this word is, seeing things from the right viewpoint, understanding it's not an accident, it's meant to be. So we're to say when calamity strikes or upon death. And for example, you might go to a Muslim funeral and you will hear them you'll hear various people say to the family, to Allah we belong and to Allah we return, either, sometimes in English, sometimes in Arabic. Means we belong to Allah. He owns everything in the universe. It's his right to give life in the first place, and he's the only one that can give life in the first place. And it's his right to take it back. We all belong to him. So we should have the acceptance and with the steadfast patience and endurance that, we belong to him. So it's just like if you, had a book or something and you lend it to somebody, you have the right to have it given back to you because it belongs to you. And nobody's upset or mad that they have to give the book back because it belongs to you and that's accepted. So after saying this with the feeling in your heart that it's the truth and that Allah only wants what's good for us, we receive blessings and praise from Allah, and his guidance of what to do in response for this loss flows from us, and we're able to recover successfully and properly. So that's what I mean by this is kind of a prescription for this. This lays out what to do, not necessarily how to feel. We still feel sadness, but how to respond to it so that we can get to the success, this, praise from Allah, from the blessings that he gives us and the mercy that he gives us. So Tamiya Zubair goes on to explain the levels of going through the difficulty. So she talks about sabr itself as kind of the first level. It's necessary to have this. It's the acceptance. It's controlling our tongue by not getting angry or frustrated. Feeling sadness, but not going beyond that. Our eyes and our heart are sad, but we don't say anything that upsets Allah or maybe upsets others and makes them feel worse about the loss. We control ourselves for anything that might not be helpful. The second level is qadr. So that really is called the divine decree. It's accepting what Allah has decreed for you. And this is a higher level than just having sabr, which sabr is hard enough, but this is accepting it, understanding that there is good in it. We may not see it, but that there is good in it, that this is what he has decreed, and we have to be patient with that. But we understand we're going to, take the actions to be able to receive reward for our suffering and that sort of thing. But just accept it for what it is, that Allah, owns us, and it's his right to take back our family member or our loved one. And then the third level is shukr, or gratitude. So it's being grateful for this test and being grateful for the reward that comes from it. The reward overcomes the difficulty of being patient, and the reward is without measure. It's not even given in here what the reward is, what that measure is, how much reward it is. So we have to understand the reward will be better than what we lost, than the feeling of loss that we have, and that knowing and accepting this will get us through. So those are those three levels: having sabr, having this, endurance, and qadr is acceptance of, that Allah knows better than we do, and that he's giving us that is something good. We don't want to miss out. Yes, there's the loss, and that's bad, but there's also good in it. We don't want to miss out on that. We want to be grateful for this, and be grateful for this, that it's a learning opportunity for us, and then it makes us stronger, and that we will get the reward. And avoiding anger. And she talks about, that this is forbidden and a sin because it brings the anger of Allah. And it's a major sin because it brings anger of Allah. So avoid this. This is not helpful to us in any way either. So just as a human being, we can understand becoming angry doesn't allow us to understand what's going on, to feel the sadness and to get through the pain and the loss and to come out on the other side, to recognize the reward that we're getting. None of that, all of that is lost in our anger. Our anger doesn't let us understand what's happening. So I also want to read to you before that paragraph that I read earlier, what it's talking about. So before it gives this prescription, it's talking about, and this is in chapter 2 of Baqarah, and it's in verse 153, 154. O believers, seek help in patience and prayer. God stands with those who are patient. Do not say about those who were killed in the cause of God that they are dead. They are indeed alive, but you do not perceive them. So we want to seek help in patience and prayer, and that he will stand with us. He will be with us as long as we are trying to be patient. We're trying to be steadfast. We are trying to look forward to that reward. So there's rewards in this life and next. It's not even just a reward in this life. And that we will say with our tongue and with our heart that we believe, that we are believers, that we will keep going through. We're not going to reject God. We're not going to reject others that may need us. We're not going to reject others or say something that might be harmful or angry. That's not helpful to us. It's not helpful to others. Be patient and accept. Seek Allah's help through patience and prayer. And Allah's messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said the following. It was reported in Sahih al-Bukhari in 5644. That's my source. He said, the example of a believer is that of a fresh tender plant. From whatever direction the wind comes, it bends. But when the wind becomes quiet, it becomes straight again. Similarly, a believer is afflicted with calamities, but he remains patient until Allah removes his difficulties. And an impious or wicked person is like a pine tree, which keeps hard and straight until Allah cuts it or breaks it down when he wishes. So you can see it's fine to bend. It's fine to feel the sadness. It's fine to cry. That's normal. It's normal to be sad with a loss. But once you're able to recover, you become straight again. Look forward to this, have this sabr, this endurance, this patience to understand this too will pass. It will be okay. So it's definitely normal to be sad for the loss. That's how we were created. It said when Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, when his son Ibrahim died, he cried and he was sad. This is normal. Prophet Yaqub or Jacob, when his son Yusuf or Joseph was separated from him, he cried so much that he got cataracts. He had beautiful patience, it's described in the Quran, that this was normal. He for years was separated and he endured. He knew his son was alive, but he just had to be patient to get him back. And Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, when he and his companions visited Sa'id ibn Ubaidah when he was sick, they all cried for him. And Prophet Muhammad said, do you not hear? Allah does not punish for the shedding of tears or the grief of the heart, but he punishes and bestows mercy on the utterances of this. And he pointed to his tongue. And the source for this is the hadith that's reported in Riyadh Salihin 925. So another thing we can do is supplicate or make dua. That's the Arabic word for supplication at the time of the calamity, immediately upon the time of calamity. This also helps us because it changes our viewpoint. We're often overcome. We don't want to be overcome. So at the moment something happens to you, even if you just like stub your toe or, a prick of a thorn or, a difficulty of somehow you lose your keys, anything, say, I can overcome this. It's you're saying this at the time. And I'll go over what to say in just a second. So here's an example. Salama, she was a woman who lived at the time of Prophet Muhammad, and she goes by the name of, which I realize we often do in our time. We often say the mother of so-and-so. We can't maybe remember the name of the person, but remember, they're Adam's son or, Kate's daughter, Salama, so mother of Salama, who lived at the time of Prophet Muhammad. So when she lost her husband, she was told by the Prophet to make this supplication. And it said, any servant of Allah upon calamity should say, we belong to Allah and to him return. And then it's further said to say, oh Allah, reward me for my affliction and give me something better than it in exchange for it. So this is really a good thing to remember to say. And of course, we can supplicate even in English. So even, believing in God and supplicating it in English, that works as well. So she ended up, as a result of this, she got Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, as her husband as a result. And she said, it's a guarantee of something better than what you lost. So how can we not make that? Obviously, that's a good thing to do. And the source of this full, it's in the Quran about we belong to Allah and to him and we should return. But I got this full, including the, oh Allah, reward me for the affliction. for my affliction and give me something better than it in exchange for it, from Sahih Muslim 918b from the books of Hadith. There's also a really good supplication to make that's good to have, and that's reported. Abdullah ibn Masud, may Allah be pleased with him, reported that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "No person suffers any anxiety or grief and then says, 'O Allah, I am your slave, the daughter or son of your slave, and the daughter or son of your maidslave. Your command over me is forever executed, and your decree over me is just. I ask you by every name belonging to you, which you have named yourself with, or revealed in your book, or taught to any of your creation, or you have preserved in the knowledge of the unseen with you, that you make the Quran the life of my heart and the life of my chest, and a departure from my sorrow and a release from my anxiety, except that Allah will remove his sorrow and replace it with happiness.'" So this is something that's really important. You know, we all want happiness in our life, and so many people are really overcome by anxiety in their life, but really this is very helpful. And further in the hadith, it goes on to say, they asked, "O Messenger of Allah, should we memorize these phrases of the supplication?" He responded, "Yes, whoever hears these words should memorize them." And then from the Muslim Matters article, and let me copy and paste this and put this in the chat real quickly so you can go back and read it. It's about specifically this dua. And I had this in a class that I was in. Let's see, chat. Close the chat so I can see. Okay, so this is the supplication to release us from any anxiety or grief or loss or hardship or difficulty. And this is life, right? We go through this all the time. So this is really important. And you can just, use this in English. As long as you believe in God, you can use this in English. And I'm going to go through what it talks about in this article a little bit. "O Allah, I am your slave, the son or daughter of your slave, and the son or daughter of your maid slave." So what does that mean? Showing belief in the complete dependence and trust on God, who has full ownership and control over everything and always has that. He says, and also that we have no control except to serve God and his plan. So if it's part of his plan, how are we going to change it? We just accept. And we also look for, like I said, other things, but we'll cover that in a few minutes. But right here, it's just talking about, I'm your creation. I came from my father and my mother, and they are your creation. So I'm dependent on you because I'm your creation, and you have ownership over all of the universe. So in the dua, going back to that, your command over me is forever executed, and your decree over me is just. So it's talking about that Allah has all power, and I accept his decree, and it's always just because he knows everything. He understands everything. He knows everything about everything in the universe. So how can I know more than that? I don't. So since my knowledge is imperfect, and I further not only don't have all knowledge, I have not all wisdom. I can't put it all together properly. Allah has all wisdom and knows better than his slaves. He knows creation, and he wants only good for them. So if he has that, then he has all wisdom of how to give that and how to make it all fit together. So he has no need of us, but we had need of him and everything from him. And then he goes on further in this supplication to say, I ask you by the words to say this for him, to him, I ask you by every name belonging to you, which you have named yourself with, revealed in your books, or that you taught to any of your creation, or that you have preserved in the knowledge of the unseen with you. So anything he has not revealed, so no one and nothing knows about it. And this is requesting, in the article it talks about, this is requesting at a high level and high level of completeness based on how Allah has named and described himself to us, even including what he has not told us directly, and including what he's told the angels or any creation, or simply just is in his own knowledge that he's not given us. It's showing the depth of need in us requesting an answer to this supplication, and is dependent upon Allah's perfection and Allah's uniqueness, and is not dependent on our individual inferiority and incapacity. And in the dua it says, you make the Quran the life of the heart and the light of my chest, and a departure from my sorrow and a release from my anxiety. So in here, it's explaining that the Quran is a cure and a program for implementing the best life with a pure and a light heart, and based on the natural way that we were created. And in Islam, we talk about that as being our fitra, that we are created in a certain way. And just that could be a whole session in itself and many classes on that. But a fitra is basically how he has created us with goodness, that we want justice, we want cleanliness, we want happiness, we want these things. And this is how all of man was created. So this part of this dua, and you made the Quran the life of my heart and the light of my chest, and a departure from my sorrow and a release from my anxiety, is really following the Quran to prevent and reduce pain, anxiety, and sorrow, and to turn that joy. How do we do it? How to turn that that sorrow and difficulty and anxiety into joy and an elevation of our rank in the hereafter, and to provide it as a release and joy and comfort to us in this life, and to provide us with wisdom and patience in this life, because we can understand a little bit more. So here's just a little bit on my thoughts and my reflection on this dua, and how I've come to understand it. So in this supplication, we're acknowledging our position as an insignificant requester next to Allah, who is the one in his creation, and how I'm one in his creation, and it's my place within the creation as long chain of imperfect and needy beings. Every single human being that's ever lived has been imperfect, and we've been needy. And we're acknowledging that we're even more needy than our parents, and that Allah has given us to ask from and to take care of us, and that he will do so. And we are completely accepting of Allah's rights and decree over us, whether it was before, during, or after this dua, and that his decree is always perfectly just, and it's with his complete knowledge and his complete and understanding wisdom, and it's what's needed for total harmony and balance for us and our relationship with all of creation. You know, we don't really understand everything in his creation. We don't even understand ourselves perfectly, but he does. So we want to fix that. So I also think when he thinks of this, of two animals, the hunted and the prey, and how we're each accepting of Allah's decree. Even these animals accept Allah's decree. So whether they get to eat or not, and whether they die as a result of the other's meal, or whether they'll live to eat their own next meal. So they're going to accept it, whether they get to eat or not. And, you know, this is huge. You know, if we understand this and we live this each day, and that's kind of a simplistic way of putting it, but that's kind of the way I was thinking about it, is that we accept this and we live our lives this way. So in asking this supplication by every name belonging to Allah, we're appreciating him in his perfection and his uniqueness, and a way that he has perfectly given to us to recognize him, or to remember his nature through connecting to him, through our understanding of his names and attributes. And that's also something, but there's names such as his, you know, the all merciful. So like we can be merciful, but he's completely, uniquely merciful in a precise way. So that's one example. So, and he has names and attributes that he's not even told us. And so we can understand him and believe in him and understand this and ask of him, because we believe in the truth of all that he has told us. So in your own understanding of who God is, and you know, in your own belief in how you understand that, he's told us by extension of this, we can believe him by all that he has said and done that we don't know, because we believe in him. So it's just like if you understand a person and you understand who they are and what they are, you know your own child, you know how they're going to act. And so you understand in the way that you understand them, how they did something or how they didn't do something, how they failed to do something, so you can understand them. So this, by example, is showing, he yet is beyond all of this, but that's our nature for how we can understand in an imperfect way. We don't fully know even our child or even ourselves, but he understands us and he understands our asking. And we can, by extension, say, we understand he knows best. So I feel like this is also holding us to not only believe in his names and attributes, but to know and understand him in order to ask by the weight of his perfection, his uniqueness, his names, his attributes, that it's perfect. And so we ask that he be able to do these things, not us and our imperfection. So also, I'm thinking that, this supplication is making the Quran the life of our hearts and the light of our chests, is also asking for the strength of the Quran to heal us, to be our companion, to provide a prescription for fixing our life, to read it. We all spend so much money and time on all these other ways of, how to exercise or how to do these things. And we read all of these manuals on how to do this, but we really don't read things on how to fix our life, how to have this prescription. So implementing the Quran in our lives will change us in a way that will live our lives in a manner that protects us from sadness. So due to this loss or missed opportunities or our own failings, our past actions when we know we've made mistakes, and our anxiety or our worry over potential future loss or missed opportunities or misgivings. So the Quran fills our hearts and our chests with joy and possibility and purifies our past with future and a prescription for success. It allows us to move on from our failures. And how does the Quran do this? So there are many ways: by teaching us good manners, by having us conduct our affairs in a righteous manner, by teaching us to appreciate life and appreciate what is good, by giving us forgiveness and prescriptions for forgiveness. How we will all, however, we all follow our whims and our desires unless we look back to what was said at the beginning of this supplication, when it's talking about the sincerity of our statements. So this is one of the things where we start to live our lives by a way where we're not just following whims and desires. We understand, we know why we're doing things. We have prescriptions for doing certain things, and we start to follow them. We start to remember these things. And that's another thing. The Quran is often described also as a remembering Allah. So we're starting to do what that is, and we're sincerely recognizing our place in creation. We're accepting what Allah has for us, what his judgment is, what his decree. His decree, we often have a to-do list. We always plan our days. We want to follow through what we want to do every day, what we think is important. But I don't think I've had any day where I have done exactly what's on my list. Allah has other plans and he decrees other things for me. And we follow those things, and we realize that some of those things are good for us, and we might never have even thought of them. And so we also start to recognize our Lord completely. We start to recognize and understand him in new and different ways that we hadn't thought of before. And they're revealed to us in a way that's only in our own lives. And we choose to follow the teachings of the Quran for that reason, because it's proved itself to us. And so this is something that anyone can have. I read my first Quran in English. Obviously, I'm not an Arabic speaker. And in English, still we can see these things. And so this is of benefit to us. So, and also God will know how sincere we have been when we asked early in the dua. We say these things and it's like, are we doing them? Are we following through with them? Are we having this sabr that we've talked about a little bit? And why would God not remove our sorrow and replace it with happiness? Because if we're asking in this supplication, what we have proved that we're actually doing to take the right medicine through our beliefs and actions, and we've testified in this supplication, we're also doing this, then that makes sense. He can only do, Allah, why would he not do those things that he's saying that he will do for those who ask in the way that he's asked us to ask for? And that we have also said that he has control over all of his creation, so including us. So while we may feel sadness or anxiety in our actions or our inactions, or even in the decree of Allah, not only will He heal us with the Quran, but He also heals our relationships, our situations, our conditions that affect us, but that we don't have control over outside of ourselves. And we've said all this in this supplication. So all of this is kind of embedded in that. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of this supplication for happiness. And like I said, I've put this link down to this article, and you can read more about this later. It also gives the supplication both in English and Arabic, if you've not come across this before, and the hadith that it talks about, and then what their reflection is on this. So another thing, in addition to really going through this supplication at the time, that it's okay to be sad for the loss, it's okay to make this dua for happiness, and this is what we should do. Also, we should remember the reward for the patience. So for this patience or sabr that we're having. So Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Allah says, I have nothing to give but paradise as a reward to my believing slave who, if I cause their dear friend or relative to die, remains patient and hopes for Allah's reward. And the source for this is one of the books of hadith called Sahih al-Bukhari, 6424. So accept the decree of Allah, accept God's decree. So, and we talked a little bit about this before, but it also means don't listen to the why me's or if only in your head, because that's just from the shaitan or the devil or Satan, however you want to say, and it is not beneficial to you. So Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, a slave of Allah shall not believe until he believes in Al-Qadr. We talked about that before, the divine decree of God. It's good and it's bad. So the good and the bad of the decree that is for us, such that he knows that what struck him would not have missed him, and that what missed him would not have struck him. And if you get this, you'll understand this divine decree. So it means, kind of just to reword that just a little bit, it says, what struck you would never have missed you, no matter what you did to avoid it. And what missed you, or what you weren't afflicted with, or what didn't happen, would never have happened, even if you worked hard to make it happen. So if you think about that and really ponder about it, that's pretty deep. But that's true, because this happens every day in your life. So you'll start to see it if you think about it that way. And this, what I said that the Prophet Muhammad said, let me say it again, a slave of God should not believe until he believes in the divine decree. It's good and it's bad, such that he knows that what struck him would not have missed him, and what missed him would not have struck him. And the source for that hadith, which a hadith again is the sayings and doings of Prophet Muhammad, is from Tirmidhi 2144. And so to reinforce this, Allah shows that we don't always know what's best or know the benefit of an action. And we don't. We might not know the implications that happen, or what the ripple effect is. So in Bukhari, in the Quran, chapter 2, 216, it says, but perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you. And Allah knows while you do not know. So strive for that will benefit you. And so now I'm just talking about this a little bit. So strive for that which will benefit you. Seek the help of God and do not feel helpless. Don't say if only or why me. It opens the door to regret. It opens the door to the Satan or the devil. Say Allah has decreed, and whatever he wills, he does. Allah is in control, and Allah is who gives life and who causes death. So it also talks in the Quran, the chapter called Soothing. It's chapter 94, verse 6. It says, with hardship comes ease, with hardship comes ease. So through the pain comes healing and change, the ability to move on from the loss. And without change, if you think about it, Allah's never able to give you something different, because if there's no change, how are you going to get to something that's different? You think about this, how are you going to get a new job unless you quit the current job? And the new job may be better for you. How do you know? You don't know. You've never experienced it before. So something different that has goodness in it for us, we'll never be able to get to if we don't move on. So another part of this prescription is including, feeling the sadness is okay and doing the dua, and that, don't listen to the what ifs or the why nots, or, why only me, those kinds of things. And opening your heart in supplication and prayer. So it's, we can also open our heart through this supplication and dua. And we can also look towards the prophets and what they endured and how difficult their life was. And we're given a lot of these in the Quran and elsewhere. Yaqub, or Jacob, he said, I only despair not of relief from Allah. Indeed, no one should despair of relief from Allah. And that's from the Quran. And then in chapter 21, chapter or surah, that's the Arabic word. In the Quran, there's a chapter called the Prophets, and it lists several prophets and them calling out one after another to relieve them from their grief and their distress and their difficulty. And it also explains how Allah responded. So Ayub in particular, he really had extreme grief and loss. And it talks about, how he had disease for years and how it was contagious and he had to avoid everybody. And as so many in his family died, and, he had only his wife left. And, she really was having to, sell, like her hair to, make money so that they could eat, and how difficult it was. So let me read you a little bit about this chapter and what he said and what his supplication was. So it says, this is, like I said, chapter 21 on the prophets, and it's verse 82, 83. Remember Job, or Ayub, when he cried out to his Lord, evil has touched me, and you are the most merciful of those who show mercy. It often talks about Allah in the plural, and that's just like a royal we, as I have been explained to me in classes. So it says, we answered his prayer. It doesn't mean that he's more than one. Allah is only one. But it said, in his royal highness, his extreme mercy, and in his, uniqueness, and in his perfection, we answered his prayer, drew away his distress, and restored his family to him, and as many besides, a mercy from us and a remembrance to worshipers. So that's just one from what he had said. And like I said, his was really, really, he's the example for extreme grief and extreme loss and difficulty, and for how long he suffered. And then also Yunus, or Jonah, in the same chapter, just a little after that, in verses 87, 88. Remember the man in the whale, when he departed in fury, he imagined we had no power over him and cried out from the depths of darkness. So he had a point of weakness, this Jonah, Yunus. And he left to his people, and he was in the darkness in the belly of the whale, and he said, there is no God but you. Glory to you, I have been wicked. Can you imagine being able to have, being able to get any words in your head at that point in time? And then it says, we answered his call and delivered him from his grief and distress. Thus do we deliver the faithful. So he was very faithful, and, he was still rewarded for that, and being able to have the presence of mind to realize his error and say something. So, same for us. We need to do the best we can. And another thing we can do is to find the meaning in life and gratitude, have gratitude. How thankful would you be to be, restored from something like this? Or Ayub, that he was healed and he was given more family besides, it says. And, all of these things, look forward to this reward that's described in the Quran in these various different stories. And in the original story that I was talking about, this prescription to grief and loss, there's a reward coming. And it says, there is good in every affair of the believer. If good comes to him, he is thankful. And if loss or difficulty comes to him, he is steadfast in patience. There is good for him in either. And this is just kind of paraphrased from Sahih Muslim 2999. And that's a hadith, a book of hadith. authentic Book of Hadith. And then another thing we could do is give in charity on behalf of the dead one and pray and make dua for them. Or even if you have grief, loss, anxiety, any of these things to relieve you, because you know you're relieving someone else. And this just has that effect on us. And there's also charity. One of the Arabic words for charity is sadaqah. And there's a sadaqah jariyah, and that means ceaseless charity. And so it's one of these things that continues. It says when a man dies, his deeds come to an end, except for three things: tzedakah jariyah, beneficial knowledge, and a virtuous descendant who prays for him. So there are things that continue, that he has, he does nothing for later, but at that later time, it benefits him. So, and charity doesn't have to be just money. It could be a smile. It could be helping someone with something. It could be making supplication for someone else in their absence. It could be, going to visit the sick. It could be helping someone. It could be giving them a call if they're, if they're in need of, an uplift, to hear from you. So helping others, sisters to sisters, brothers to brothers, helping the community as a whole, doing something of benefit, fulfilling the needs of others, and Allah will fulfill your needs. Bring others out of discomfort, and Allah will do the same for you. And that's from paraphrased from Sahih Bukhari 2442. So there's also a story, which I won't go into depth. There's a story of a man who wanted a supplication to be made for him, and the specific supplication was to be taken out of any tests in this life, any difficulty or hardship. And so he was told, go find someone that you want to be like that doesn't have those tests. And indeed, he couldn't find someone, because he realized that we only see the externality of someone's life. We don't see what they see on the inside. So they may be putting up a good front, but we don't see that. We don't see the difficulties that they deal with that they never tell us about. So we don't really see the full life. We just see the external side, what they put out for the world to see about them. And we don't see the hardships that they're enduring. So actually he didn't find anybody he wanted to be like. He said, no, mine I can deal with. The tests that I have, I can deal with. So the purpose of these tests in life are to show us that we need to depend upon Allah, to depend upon God, and to follow his guidance and accept his divine decree, because he has all knowledge. He loves us. He has provided for us. He's created us exactly how he wants us to be. And it's always for our benefit to have these tests, and to show us to repent for what we messed up on, and to do our best with our intentions for pleasing him in all sincerity. And so that Allah will show us his mercy, and we'll feel it, and to submit to him. And so that he can reward us in this life, and hopefully, inshallah, if he pleases, with his heaven, his Jannah. So in conclusion, the Quran has this Islamic lens for us for how to deal with grief and loss in this life, how to deal with the trials, the anxiety we feel, the difficulty, how to get through it all. So the Islamic prescription for not being overcome with grief and loss is to realize that we should, that we, as well as everything else in the universe, belongs to Allah. We belong to God, and he has the right to do as he sees fits. And he gives us only good, because the reward is always greater than the loss. And there is always good that comes to us through loss. And in our patience, we are rewarded for that during the loss, and that he also rewards us for any loss or difficulty. So, and remember that reward is coming to us, and that is greater than any loss that we've ever felt. And then understand that we don't have complete knowledge or wisdom of this actual event or loss. We don't really know everything about it. Yes, we may understand that what a death is, and we may understand what may be a loss of some, job, or, maybe we had a car and now that, a tree fell on our car. Like I know a sister who had a tree that fell on her car, but we don't really know what the final outcome will be of all of that. We don't know who may come into our lives after we have a loss of someone in our life. I lost my father early on in life, but I've had so many blessings, so many people that came into my life after that. And we maintain our sabr, or our steadfast patience and endurance with acceptance, and we don't give in to the what ifs or what nots or why me or those kinds of things, because it's not beneficial in the first place. And we don't need that to solve our problems. We're given this prescription to follow that does provide us with goodness and makes it easier for us. And to make supplication to Allah or to God for this sabr and for this acceptance, and make this supplication for happiness that we talked about before, and make it frequently before you have any difficulty, or just, as a pattern of your life, because it's a prescription for happiness. And if you come to believe it and walk down this path, you'll feel it and you'll have it, and you'll have release in your life from difficulties, and it'll be much easier for you. And the Quran is a cure because it shows us the way to understand life and to respond to what we have no control over. That's one reason why we feel anxiety and difficulty. We fear for the future because we don't have control. But through this, we understand we don't have to have control. And that's a release to us too, because we could never keep up with everything and do everything we would have to do to get the benefit, to get the full benefit. It's better to leave it up to Allah, who has control over all creation and has full wisdom and knowledge. And also have gratitude for what you do have and all the benefits that it provides to you. Once we see it this way, we have a full and better understanding for this. And then even when we do come and have a loss, we know we've appreciated it at the time, or we didn't wait and we lost it. Oh, I meant to do that later and I never got to it. We don't have that regret. And then give in charity and relieve the suffering of others. If we do this, and that also helps us at the time that we have this grief and loss, we know what it feels like to have the grief and loss. We have empathized with them, and we've planned on how we get through it, and our heart feels how to get through it because we've provided that path to others. So this is kind of what I wanted to get through, what I wanted to explain. I had put this together originally for one of our Ramadan Zoom sessions we had with some of the sisters. And anyway, I just wonder if there's any questions. I'm sorry, nobody stopped me with any questions.
No, there were no questions, but this was a beautiful session. Very, very good to know how to deal with loss and grief, and and how to maintain our patience and submit to Allah's decree. It's beautiful, Dami.
May you all forgive me if I've made any mistakes or I've kind of stumbled over the words, but yeah, this is really, really helpful. And it's kind of a prescription because it makes each future loss or difficulty much easier.
Yes.
So,
yes.
It's
to understand
what I would wish for everyone. Yes, what I would wish for everyone. So, anyway, if there's no questions, that's good. Of course, in these sessions, people are welcome to ask any other kind of questions. There's usually at least a couple of other people as well as the speaker to answer questions. So that's always a good thing as well.
Yep. We do not have any participation or questions, so maybe we can end it for now. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we ask Allah to bless us all in our efforts, and bless Dami for her time and for this beautiful session.
Thank you all for putting up with me every time. I appreciate it.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.